And so Ezra tells us what happened to them after the fall and how they came back and all the things they had to do to be restored. Am I making sense? So Ezra is not a book where we can neglect, because it tells us about people who are coming back from a exile, people who are coming back from a fall, what you have to do to be restored. So if I am a person in the kingdom and I have a terrible season where I've fallen away from God, I've been disobedient to God, and I find myself feeling distant from God, if I want to get an outline of what does it feel like to come back, and how do I come back, and how do I restore my relationship with God, how do I get back in good graces with God, and how do I deal with my own emotions, my own personality while I'm in that process, Ezra will be a great book to read, because I see a people who are in my exact situation. Clear enough? And so now Ezra, it comes right after 2 Chronicles, and God has promised to return his people to the land of promise. So he's like, the land that you fell out of and the promises that you lost, I promise you, you're going to get those back. And so we see how it looks and how it feels to come back through this process. Now, this process is going to occur after approximately 70 years of exile. Why 70 years? Because the prophet Isaiah prophesied to them, if y'all don't listen to God, y'all are going to be in slavery some 70 years. And so to show you how powerful God is, one, but how exact God is, two, the prophet comes and says, the Lord told me you're going to be in exile for 70 years. And so ironically, they are in exile for 70 years. And so it shows you that God is always true to his word. And so now, when we look at Ezra and Nehemiah, I want you to understand this, that in the original text, or in the Hebrew Bible, Ezra and Nehemiah are actually united as one book. They're united in one book because they're telling the same story, but one is from Ezra the priest's vantage point, and everything else, and it tells of the first two returns. The third return, or the third time they come back, is Nehemiah. And so Nehemiah in some Hebrew Bibles is called the second Ezra. So if you're ever reading the Hebrew Bible and you see the second Ezra, you don't go, oh Lord, oh Jesus, this ain't the Bible, you know. You understand? The Septuagint, or the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible, calls it the second Ezra. The Latin Bible calls it the first book of Ezra. So and then they just split it down, the story of from Nehemiah, from Ezra's vantage point, and then the same story or the further continuation of the story from Nehemiah's standpoint. When I look at Ezra and Nehemiah, I'm looking at the restoration of people who are in exile. And Ezra focuses on the first two returns, and Ezra deals with the rebuilding of the temple itself. Nehemiah then comes some years later and finishes the rebuild and restores the city and the walls of Jerusalem. Ezra works on the temple and the people's mentality, and then after many years, then Nehemiah comes and finishes off and says he re-energizes the people and gets them re-engaged, and they finish rebuilding the city and reconstructing the community and getting everything back right with God. Clear enough. That's how they relate. That's how they relate. And so when you look at the book of Ezra, what you see is Israel's second exodus. Why second exodus? Their first exodus was from where? Egypt. So when we see Israel being delivered from Egypt, that's that first exodus. That's why it's called the book of Exodus. So Ezra shows you when a remnant comes back or they exit from exile. That's why it's called the second Exodus, their second coming back. Does it make sense? Makes sense. And so during their second Exodus, or them coming back from Babylon, which is some 900-mile trek. So they have to come from Asia and travel from Asia. That's why when we talk about the Bible and everything else, you have Africa here, you have Asia and Babylon here, and you have the Middle East right here. And then you have Turkey and Russia and Germany, and then you have Rome all over here. I wish I didn't put the map up here, but the reality is they're coming back from this Babylonian captivity. And when they took them, and it was a 900-mile journey from Jerusalem to Babylon. And so now, so it wasn't across the street, it wasn't around the corner, it was 900 miles of walking. Some of y'all said, whoa, I wouldn't think about that. That's a long journey. I can't get y'all to go across the street. So they come back. And so in the second Exodus, when you look at Ezra, it's really broken up into two segments. One, how they restored the temple. That was from chapters 1 through 6. So when I'm reading the book of Ezra, chapters 1 through 6, they're showing me how these group of people came back from a 900-mile journey to come back and how they restored the temple. Now, Dr. Moody, who are these people? How many of them came back? I'll have it here later on. But I believe of the 3 million people that were taken into Babylon, only about 50,000 came back. Everybody else decided, man, we don't figure it out. We good. And isn't that interesting? Because spiritually, that's what we do. We learn to adjust and live in exile. We learn to, our natural tendency is harder to return to God than it is to learn to live in captivity. And you have to understand that about human nature. We just learn to adjust. So for many of us, many times what we do in life is we just figure it out and just learn how to live with whatever it is. So even when God gave them the opportunity, one, he told them through the prophets, I'm going to restore you. Two, he gave them the opportunity through the king and through a decree. Three, the reality was how many of them, what percentage of you would actually leave your comfort to go back to God. So it shows you that a people naturally they express a desire for returning to God. But when the opportunity is afforded them, there's actually a very low percentage of people who actually engage in the activities and the efforts that it takes to really go back to God. Am I making sense? So you cannot look at the crowd and judge your spirituality by the numbers of the crowd. Am I making sense? Because just because it's crowded in there doesn't mean that's where God is. Now, once again, the first 6 chapters, the rest of the temple. The last 7 through 10. It's now Ezra leading them to rebuild their spiritual condition. So when they restore the temple, they're actually led by a gentleman named Zerubbabel. And Zerubbabel actually teaches them, or he leads them back on this expedition to go and rebuild now the temple. Then the second expedition goes back, and Ezra is sent back. Even though he is the writer of the book, he is sent back to now come back from Babylon and then restore the people spiritually. So what's very interesting is this. Initially, they come back and they're rebuilding a place construction-wise, but it lets you know that you can actually engage in physical reconstruction without spiritual reformation. It's very easy to miscalculate just because I'm physically doing something, whether I'm spiritually engaged or not. Am I making sense? So now, what we have, I remember I told you, when we look at the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, you see 3 returns. So there's three groups of people. So that first group comes back, the second group comes back some years later, and then the third group. The first group comes back with Zerubbabel. Yes. Right? So now, 49,897 people leave Persia and go back to Jerusalem. Of 3 million people, 50,000 said, "Oh, go back and build the kingdom of God." Man, I tell you what. So the majority of them said, "We're gonna send some money with you. Godspeed. Good luck with all that. But I ain't finna do all that work." And so now the first return. And so this first group leaves under Zerubbabel's leadership, and they're sent back to go and rebuild Jerusalem that has been destroyed, that has been burned down. And then the second return, look at this, 1,800 people, 1,754 people returned the second time. And so I told you the first group, the first section of Ezra deals with the restoration of the temple. The second under Zerubbabel, and then the second group goes and they deal with the reformation of the people under Ezra. Clear enough. Are you seeing me here? Are you seeing me? Now remember, the years count down. So this group of people leave and they get to work and they do some work, and at some point they kind of die off, and then they have a second, their energy dies off, their passion dies off, the construction stops. And then then Ezra goes back with his other group, and then they do their thing, and the construction stops. And then the third group, the book of Nehemiah, and Nehemiah come back, and then they complete it. Clear enough. Now, so when we look at the idea of Ezra, now it's one of the few books, I think one of the 2 books where it's mostly written, the original text is not written in Hebrew. It's actually written in Aramaic.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you liked this message, you can find the rest at cmllcstore.com. We invite you to join us again for our extraordinary worship services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., Sundays at 4 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, where Dr. Moody teaches how to understand the Bible, and you can get all your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you. We ask that you subscribe to The Rock ATX on YouTube and follow The Rock ATX on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. You can also get connected on our website at therockatx.org. Again, thank you for worshiping with us, and be blessed.